Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to today's deep dive on stress and anxiety management. So, we've been doing this whole month of February on stress and anxiety management, mostly because the calls that our members book with our guides is one of the top three topics is stress and anxiety management. So we see that our members are navigating stress and anxiety on a regular basis. It is what pulls people the most often to us in the work that we do and the support that we provide. And we figured let's have some open conversations, give you some real life tips, tricks, and tools, and some insight and some wisdom to be able to help you navigate your own journey. Because the wild thing is, I think I've said this in almost every Motivational Monday leading up to today, about 20% of people experience anxiety and about 40% of people experience stress daily. So what that means is a lot of the times these feelings can feel very isolating. We can feel like we're dealing with them alone. Sometimes it's hard to get vulnerable and share where we're at and share what we're going through. But the truth is 20 to 40% of us are dealing with it at really any given time. So one, the hope is that it eases some of that internal stress that you have of why am I so stressed? Why am I so anxious? You're not alone in it. But two, that you see that, okay, if I'm not alone, if this is a normal thing that people are going through, just because it's normal doesn't mean I necessarily want to continue on this path. What do I do to change it? How do I take steps in my life to cause some sort of evolution where I either experience this less or I've got better tools on how to manage it? So we're very excited for today's conversation. The deep dive is a little bit different than Motivational Monday. It follows the same topic of Motivational Monday, but it's where we dive deeper into the conversation. And it's where we start having more in-depth conversations. We get into the nitty-gritty, and we're going to talk a lot today. We've been planning for this conversation for a few weeks, and we're very excited about it. And this is part one of two. So today is the deep dive, which is where we are webinar style. You've got us, the two panelists, me and Carolyn, and we'll be the ones sharing our wisdom and our insight as we go along this next hour. And then tomorrow at the exact same time, we have our deep dive mentorship. So the deep dive mentorship is meeting style. And what that means technically is that everyone can share their face, everyone can share their voice, everyone can tell their story. So the mentorship is not an information session. All of our motivational Mondays are information. All of our deep dives are information. The mentorship is where you get to come on and we have some tools that we're going to be bringing into the conversation. We have some questions we're going to be asking you to start to get your brain primed for what do I normally feel with stress and anxiety? What's in my control? What's not in my control? And starting the conversation, but it really is a conversation. And a lot of the times, what we see in our mentorship sessions are that people end up leaving the mentorship sessions sometimes very emotional, sometimes empowered. We've had people many months end up having tears running down their face because there's something powerful that happens when you're able to not only be seen, but you're able to see that the stories that other people are telling are the stories that you relate to. So you're not alone. But then in that, you're given tools and you're given insight and you're supported on your journey in a way that I feel like we all want to, because I know that at least for me, I've got the same similar thoughts running in my head every single day. And I'm like, how do I get through this? How do I get beyond this? And a lot of the times it's just having support to help us on that journey. And you can drop 111 in the chat if you relate to that like same similar theory series of thoughts in your mind, because I know there's no way that I'm alone in all of this. But I'm going to drop our deep dive mentorship registration link for you if you'd like to join tomorrow. And if you're inspired by this conversation or any of the work that we've done this month, then I highly suggest that you join. And with that, we've got the wonderful Carolyn here. She is one of our life guides. She is amazing. I think I've done one other conversation with her that you might have seen us do in the past. Her and I have spent a lot of time working on today's conversation and really seeing how can we bring the most value to today's conversation. So I'm excited for you all to learn from her, to grow, and to gather all this insight. And as for Carolyn, her superpower is that she listens deeply and helps others access their deepest thoughts and desires to illuminate those answers and guide each individual on their unique journey. So, Carolyn, hi, welcome to today's conversation. We're so excited to have you. Can you give us a little bit of an insight in today's conversation?
Yes, today's conversation, I want to take this in a tiny, little different way. I'd like to kind of play with some ideas and to invite you to look at stress and anxiety management in a different way. It's kind of like, what if? What if there was a different way to be with our stress and our anxiety? In short, that's what I hope we can delve into today.
So beautiful. So, we're going to give you different perspectives and different ways to really navigate this. A lot of our Motivational Monday sessions have given you like in the moment tools of how do we, if we were dealing with stress and anxiety right now, what do we do with it? So, today is kind of that more long-term perspective. How do we build more resilience around stress and anxiety? How do we create an experience within ourselves where we don't have that running rampant inside of us where we have to use these tools all these times and the tools are very, very useful, but we want to create more of a stable environment internally so that we can feel good and feel like we're living our lives with purpose and with peace throughout our days. And I don't know if any of you have seen this book. If you were at the very, very beginning of me working with life guides, you may have seen Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. This is a book all about the 84 different emotions that humans experience. And this book has been a game changer for me in my life. It's helped me articulate my human experience so much better. But she does have a definition for stress and a definition of anxiety that's different than what we've heard over the past few weeks. So I wanted to read those to you before we really dive into today's conversation. So, stress is when we evaluate environmental demand as beyond our ability to cope successfully. This includes elements of unpredictability, uncontrollability, and feeling overloaded. Drop 222 in the chat if you can relate to that feeling. I'm going to drop 222 in the chat. Too many expectations, too many thoughts, too much to do. And I'm also going to read anxiety and anxiety is going to be a little bit longer of a definition just because anxiety is a little bit more nuanced. There's a lot more. So, the American Psychological Association defines anxiety as an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure. Anxiety can be both a state and a trait. To better understand this, let's get clear on what these terms mean. The best explanation I've come across is from the Oxford Review Encyclopedia of Terms. Here's how they explain it. A trait is considered to be something that is part of an individual's personality and therefore a long-term characteristic of an individual that shows through their behavior, actions, and feelings. It is seen as being a characteristic, feature, or quality of an individual. For example, someone who says, I'm a confident person, or I'm just an anxious person, is stating that these attributes are part of who they are. Drop 333 in the chat if you can relate to anxiety as a trait. A state, on the other hand, is a temporary condition that they are experiencing for a short period of time. After the state has passed, they will return to another condition. For example, someone who says, feeling quite confident about this interview, or I feel nervous about doing this, is describing states. So drop 444 in the chat if you relate to anxiety as more of a state. For me, I relate to anxiety as more of a state. There have been longer seasons of my life where I've been anxious just in general, and I've had to learn how to cope with that. But I think like mostly I identify with it as a state, but there are a lot of people who identify with it as a trait, and I feel like it's very important to understand where we lay in all of that. So. All of that to say, some of us may be more predisposed to anxiety than others, and we may have a little bit more work to do on our hands, but that doesn't mean that the work will not be worthwhile. So, thank you all for allowing me to read to you. It's one of my favorite things. Um, so Carolyn, can you tell us a little bit more about your personal story with stress and anxiety?
Well, like all of us, I have a lifetime of life, which is often stressful and anxiety producing. Specifically, about 10 years ago, my life blew up. Um, my husband was dying. I needed to change, need to sell the home. Family dropped out. There was no support. It was COVID during some of the time that I was caring for my husband while he was dying. I had no support. And I lived moment to moment in fear, anxiety, and in stress. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. After my husband died, I started kind of reflecting on my 40 some years with him and realized that my husband lived in a state. I mean, I knew this, but I'm all over the map. Just ask me how I feel. I can tell you right now. This is my emotion. This is what I'm feeling. But my husband was this very stable person who didn't get angry, didn't get upset. And I really started looking in this world of chaos that I was in without my best friend, without family, with COVID and chaos in the world. What can I do to be more like my guy was? Where can I find some stability and rest and respite from stress and anxiety? I was waking up in the morning just like, okay, what next? I was going to bed like, what next? And I fell upon a philosophy that started to resonate with me and it made me start asking myself, what if I don't need to live in this stress? What if I do not live in this anxiety? And just quick story, I pulled together six friends. One is a PhD, a couple of them are attorneys, one's retired, six people from different places, all dealing with some significant stress. And when we started working together and working from this rather different philosophy, our lives changed. One of us went from being suicidal, and she had tried to kill herself, to happy and just joyful, and just herself changed. Her job changed. She lost weight. She stopped drinking. Another one finally got in touch with the grandchildren she'd never gotten to know. Another one had significant experiences at work that just reduced a lot of anxiety. So I went from oh, wouldn't that be cool, but I could never do it, to, oh my God, this works. And so for the last 4 years or so, I've been really doing a deep dive, and it's changed my life. So that's my wordy explanation of my stress pattern.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for all of those words because that's an amazing story. And I feel like it inspires hope in others to realize that we can change and we can grow, and the patterns that we've had, doesn't matter how many decades we've had them for, if we're willing enough, we can see change. And it does take work and it does take time. I think I really love, Carolyn, that your story involved a whole support system and that you all got to win and watch each other grow through that process. And I think that leads perfectly into my next question too, is you're a guide with Life Guides, which means that people of the partner organizations that we work with come to you to help them with a wide array of issues. But what are some of those common stories that you hear from your members who are looking for support regarding their stress and anxiety?
Yeah, I have the most incredible members, from all walks of life. Uh, the stress comes from so many things, daily life, all the things that we all experience. The thing that I think is most important and most illuminating is I've come to realize that what comes to us, what comes to my members, what comes to me and my friends, the outside world comes in. Things happen. And I am beginning to realize it is not so much what is coming into my life from the outside. It's how I accept or don't accept or try to manage, try to push away those experiences. Basically, I and most of the members I'm working with, we create our own stress. We fight with the reality. And when it comes right down to reality is what has happened. So we can spend a lot of time trying to fix what's happened. It doesn't work. What's happened has happened. We try desperately to make what we want to happen in the future happen the way we want it to happen. We try so hard to make what we don't want to happen not happen in our lives. Basically, we're fighting with the universe to make what we want to happen happen. And my experience is that that causes phenomenal stress and anxiety. We can't win.
Hmm. How to control a life that is uncontrollable. We have become masters at that. Drop 555 in the chat if you can really relate to a lot of what Carolyn is saying, because I feel like the people that I've seen in life who end up being the most peaceful and the most joyful, they're not necessarily the people who don't have any hard things to deal with. They're the people who realize that as much as we're going to have joy and happiness and bliss in this lifetime, we're going to have crazy chaos and things that we never expected, and that's a deep part of the process. And what we've come to see is that we live in a culture that really focuses exactly like Carolyn was talking about on the resistance to life and the resistance to the stress and anxiety, which is so funny because we'll be stressed and then we'll stress about being stressed. So we'll double down on it and we'll be anxious and then we'll get anxious about being anxious and we double down on that. And that one actually came from Susie, one of our other guides. She taught me that we usually double down on our emotions, which is like if we're angry, we'll get angry about being angry. We're just making it two times as bad, right? But we haven't really been taught in our culture to build a system of resilience inside of ourselves. And I feel like the people who we do see who enjoy their lives to the fullest, they're the most resilient. Because again, life is happening around them, but they're realizing that they're good either way and they've got themselves either way. So, what we want to do is build long-term support through building an internal world that feels the effects of stress and anxiety less, which means regardless of what's happening outside of ourselves, we're solid. We are good. We've got ourselves. And in this whole series that we've been doing this month, we've already learned the systems of how to manage stress and how to manage anxiety in the moment. And that's how to manage all of the external things that are happening, which that's an incredibly important part of the conversation. But an even deeper and more long-lasting part of the conversation is how do we build that internal world? How do we create those support systems inside of ourselves where I'm good. I'm good either way. I could break down, I could cry, I could be hysterical, and at the end of me losing all of it, I know that I'm good. So, Carolyn, how do we let go of that need to control the world around us, especially when, like we know, it's and everyone's saying in the chat, it's mostly all that we've known.
Yes, it is exactly that. It's what we've known. So that's why I wanted to kind of pose this alternative. What if we could find a way to be at peace with what the world brings to us and not fight it, not fight it. There it is. It is what it is. And we have a choice. Um, the word acceptance, I think, is such an important one. Um, Acceptance and gratitude. We live in a phenomenal space. This world is an amazing place. And most of us are living our lives in fear of getting what we don't want, fear of not getting what we do want. What if we could learn just to accept what is? What if we could just say, oh, okay, life is bringing me this event. How can I meet this event in a matter of service? How can I serve the moment in front of me? So we're taught a lot of techniques and they're all wonderful. We're taught meditation, yoga, deep breathing, all these techniques, which are wonderful. I use all of them. But what if we could learn to live back there, back in that world of not needing to go sit and meditate for 10 minutes? What if we could just be in that state inside, that rather meditative, accepting state? And whatever happens, happens. And we embrace it and accept it and enjoy it and don't fight it. What if we could live that way?
Hmm. It's funny. We have a great question in the chat that relates to that so perfectly too. The question is, there is little stress and anxiety when experiencing the present. The ruminating the past and future are components of out of control stress and anxiety. Do you want to go ahead and answer that?
Sure, of course. Um, yes. How many of us spend hours in rumination? Why did she say that? Oh my God. How dare she? Well, oh, I'm not going to accept that. I should have said something different. What could I have? No, that was wrong. I don't like this. This is this crazy stuff that I find going on in my head. It makes me crazy. I don't know about all of you. It doesn't do me any good. As we were talking about, the past is past. What was said was said. Now, my understanding of what someone meant when she said something, I don't know. So why am I going through this rumination? Well, she must have meant, oh, maybe I should have said, it's past, it's gone. But we torture ourselves, with unknowns and so we're staying in the stuck place in the past. How much easier if we were to say, I wonder what she meant by that. Oh well, you know, and then I mean, I'm not saying never do anything about anything. Sometimes we need to let go of the emotion and then deal with the situation. What I'm proposing is if we set aside the emotion, be it positive or negative, we set that aside, then we could deal with the reality of what is without all the emotion and the anxiety and the making up of scenarios that have nothing to do with reality. It's all in our heads. And it is our minds trying to, this is going a little deeper, but it's our minds trying to make sense of things. Our minds are trying to protect us. We have all these experiences from the past. We have all these experiences, samskaras, I think, is the word most of us know. All these things that we pack down inside because we can't deal with them. But how freeing if we can let all of that go and deal with the moment in front of us. Does that answer the question, Kira?
I think that was great. And I think, it's the reminder that exactly what you said, our brain is trying to protect us. And if our brain doesn't have an answer to a question, our brain will continue to try to find the answer to the question. So we could do two things, right? We could either try to create all of these scenarios, which, as per the question in the chat, yeah, that's what's creating the stress. The moment has already passed. And instead of letting it go and being like, so that's the other route is I'm not sure, but it doesn't have to ruin my day. And next time we talk, I'll just ask a question because drop 777 in the chat if any of you have ever had a situation happening in life, whether it's someone did something or said something where you thought that it was against you or it was a certain direction, and then come to find out later on, it was something super simple and super harmless that didn't have anything else to do with you. And I think a lot of the times we like to think that we're the main character of everyone's story. We're only the main character of our own story. If to everyone else, we are barely even a stunt double, right? We're just like a backup character. And sometimes we think we have this everything revolves around me kind of perspective. But, there's a huge difference between being like, as of right now, I'm in a little bit of a challenge with my best friend, but I know at the end of the day, we've been friends for 25 years. I know that we're going to get through it, and I hope that like the time that we have in our relationship right now, he's thinking and pondering, I'm also thinking and pondering, but it's been maybe a couple of weeks since we've chatted. This whole entire couple of weeks, I could have been like, I can't believe we're not talking. This is unbelievable. What's happening? Is our friendship okay? And there's a level of confidence that I have in myself and us where I'm like, it doesn't have to be stressed about. There will be a conversation that comes. And when that conversation comes, it's going to be fine and we're going to get the answers that we need. And those are the different ways. We're going to get similar results, right? We're going to get the truth at the end of it all. But are we going to take the direct route there and not stress, or are we going to get detoured and ping-ponged around like a ping pong ball? Um, and that's the difference, right? Is like we're going to navigate life either way. We might as well do it with a little bit more ease. Um, so, and this is a perfect tie into one of the things that I also wanted to talk about was in Motivational Monday this week with Charles, we did talk about relationships causing stress. And it makes me think about attachment theory, which I'm not sure if you all know about attachment theory, but it's basically your attachment style is formed when you're a child based on how your caregivers took care of you. And the attachment theory is that we fall somewhere on this spectrum in our relationships with an attachment figure, not just with everyone, but with people who matter to us and who we look to for advice and perspective and care and love. We either fall on the anxious side or we fall on the avoidant side. If we fall more to that anxious side, what we learned is that the tighter we hold on and the more that we reach for someone, that's how we're going to get our needs met. So we see that playing out in our adult lives. And you guys can drop 111 in the chat if you're that type of person. I'm that type of person where I'm like, if you're leaving me, I want to hold tighter. Don't ever do that. Or there's the avoidance side, which is where we were taught that if we were quiet as a child and if we didn't ask for things and if we went away, that was how we would get our needs fulfilled. And what that shows up like in our adulthood is that we try to control someone into being further from us so that we don't feel smothered or we don't feel like we're not able to get our needs met, right? And so that's where we naturally fall is somewhere on that spectrum. And then there's the middle end, or the middle piece, obviously, more of that balance where we have that secure attachment. And that's where we feel whole in ourselves and not letting others' actions determine our own feelings, our emotions, how we feel about ourselves, how we process ourselves, um, and and all of that. So we can also look at this in our lives as well. I look at attachment theory more than just in relationships. I look at it in life, right? Am I anxious about life? Do I feel like I need to control it? If I want to make a change in my life, is it the only thing that I can think about? Or am I an avoidant person where I just like neglect things and don't do things and just let things slide? Or am I pretty good and pretty solid either way? And Alvaro put in the chat that he finds attachment styles are situational and relational, and he has different regulation depending on the setting and people involved. Same. I know that I mostly lean anxious, but I can get avoidant. I can get very avoidant. I'm curious if I'm avoiding my best friend right now, but we'll see when the conversations pop up. But in regards to all of this, Carolyn, and how we relate to others, how we relate to the situations in our lives, Do you have a technique that we can use to help us shift that inner dialogue more immediately from either the ruminating or the anxious or the avoidant to finding more of that settled, secure place within ourselves?
I do, and it's very simple. Um, I try to several times during the day, um, kind of assess how do I feel? Where am I emotionally? Where am I, how am I in my skin? How do I sit with my emotions? So how do I feel? Am I happy? Am I joyful? Am I exuberant? Fabulous. I am good. If I feel, oh, well, I'm a little concerned about something, I'm anxious, then I kind of try to step in. Well, what is it that I'm feeling anxious about? I always say, like, if I have clothes in the dryer that are getting wrinkled, great, I can do something about that. I go take out the clothes from the dryer, shake them out, all's good. But what if it's something that I really can't control? What if this is something that I can do nothing about at the moment? Then I think assessing that, realizing that this is something that my mind might be trying to protect me from something. Someone may have said something that has upset me. I'm worried about something that's coming up, but right now there's nothing I can do. At that moment, I just say thank you, mind. And it may sound kind of funny, but this is the way I'm learning to interact with my mind, my heart, my consciousness. Thank you, mind. I really appreciate this. I know you're trying to protect me from something. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm safe. And let it go. And I mean, literally, let it go. When we're taught to meditate, the idea is let the thoughts come in and let them go. This is just letting go. This is a step up from that, in that we're now not necessarily in a meditative state. We're in a life state. We are living, but we're doing that same exercise of letting go. Nothing I can do. Let it go. I'm finding that that was really hard for me to do at first. Because my mind would take me into all these different rabbit holes and why I shouldn't be letting go and why I should be angry and why I should be this or should be that. But as the years pass and I'm making use of this very simple technique, I'm finding it's much easier. And during the day, if I hear a harsh word or I experience something that rattles me, that upsets me, I can go right into that. Can I do anything about this? Okay, if I can do something about it, I will. If there's nothing I can do about it, I'm gonna go. It's not worth holding on to.
So
So much.
these words that you're saying, I'm very curious, Carolyn. Are you saying this word for word to yourself in your mind? Is this like the actual conversation that's going on inside?
Yes. Now, as I'm practicing this, there's a shorthand that develops, you know. But when I first started, yes, absolutely. Recognizing my mind. Thank you. It really is trying to help me. It's not helping me. If I wanted to do my taxes, it'd be helpful. Right now, dealing with my emotions, my mind is not being helpful. But it's trying. Thank you, mind.
Wow. I think that's so beautiful to understand that we can have this own inner dialogue and to hear what that sounds like to you. So now that it's been about 4 years that you've been on this journey, has that dialogue changed a little bit?
It has. I think that there is more of a recognition of when I used to find myself in a state of mind or a state of emotion before I knew I was getting there. I have I have developed a recognition of when something is starting. If something kind of, it's like a little jab of a needle, something uncomfortable is coming in. I can recognize it now. And when I recognize it, and this is my process, so I don't know if it's helpful to anybody else, but my consciousness is what is recognizing this. I am back here. I am conscious. I am recognizing that my mind is speaking to me. I'm recognizing that my heart is speaking to me. And so at the point where I start to feel discomfort, and I'm not perfect at this by any means, but it works when I'm getting it right. The moment I feel discomfort, the moment as I feel my body starting to tighten up and my heart to shut down, I relax. And I mean, I relax physically, I relax emotionally, and I say I relax spiritually. And by that, I mean, I kind of open myself up to what else is outside of me that I need to call on right now. It's not just me. There's a whole world out there. I think it's all about me, but it's not, and I think it's important to also to recognize that I say someone snubs me, they don't say hello to me, and I'm hurt. Well, what can happen? You know, I can be hurt and feel angry and hurt inside. I can explode all over them and then find out the cat just died and that I've just made the situation worse. So what I'm trying to bring in here is that consciousness of who I am, how I am showing up. It's really important to my well-being and my emotional security. It also can be very destructive to the people with whom I'm interacting. My best friend didn't say hello. She didn't hear me. Her cat just died, and I just exploded all over her. Now, it's very simplistic, but if you think about that in the ways we interact with people, it's huge. There's so much misunderstanding going on in the world because we think we know what's going on and we react to that as opposed to respond to that. We react and we can do a lot of harm that way. So this is kind of a technique that it's a little like an early warning system. As soon as my stomach clenches and my shoulders tense up, I need to retreat, step back, let go. That makes sense.
It makes so much sense. So much so that this is exactly what I do as well. I speak to myself out loud. So what I've noticed, at least for me as a person, is it's really easy for my mind to ruminate. And if you don't know what rumination is, it's the constant repeating of the same thought in the same situation and analyzing that same thing over and over and over. It is exhausting. It runs in the background, it runs in the forefront, it runs everywhere. And it's a lot of energy. And what I realized in some areas of my life when I started doing this work was that I had to make those thoughts concrete and I had to give them periods. I needed to end it. And there were a couple of things that helped me with that. Either journaling was really, really helpful, where I could just blah everything out and just get it out and let it not be in my head anymore. Now it's on paper, it's real, it exists, it is concrete. Or say it out loud to myself, which also makes it concrete because it's physically coming out of me. So I do the same thing, Carolyn. I tell myself all of the time. I'm like, even today, I'm hosting an event this evening, and almost every single person I invited texted me saying that they can't come. And there was that part in my brain that was like, oh, this is going to be a bad event. Why are you doing this? Why is no one showing up? All of these things. Why is this friend not showing up? She never shows up for anything I do. I show up for her. And once I feel that moment in my mind, it's a reminder of this is going to be a great event, regardless if it's just me and one person or me and a million people. Everyone has lives that happen outside of mine. The scope of awareness and information that I have towards everyone else's situations are very, very minimal, so I cannot make appropriate judgments. All I can do is still ensure that the event, regardless if it's one person or a million people, goes over wonderfully. And someone said in the chat, they said, this sounds like it would take practice, this ability to have conversations with ourselves, this ability to kind of pattern disrupt what our normal pattern is of stress and anxiety and rumination, and start to find a different way to be like, I'm good either way. I'm going to show up either way. So, this is us reframing the way that our mind works. And this is where we're developing a new habit. So, I just did a session with a client last week on more of like the neuroscience of habits. And I'm curious for those of you who are here live on the session, how long do you think it takes to form a new habit? Maybe you think it's a week, maybe a month, maybe a couple of days, maybe a year. I want to know what you think because this is a really important awareness to have when we realize the changes that we want to make take time. And we don't always give ourselves that full time. So we'll say, oh, this doesn't work. Or we'll only put in some work for the first couple of days when really, some of you said 7 days, 21 days, 3 weeks. It takes anywhere from around 67 days to a year to form a new habit. So what that means is if you want to develop a new habit today, it's going to take a quarter, 25% of this year is going to be focused on making that happen. And exactly, some of it takes, definitely depends on the habit. Some of it takes more focus. But what we start to see is okay, we need to put in some focus, some time, and some energy into making this new habit in our minds of how do we navigate life? How do we think about life and perceive life? We have to develop that new habit. And another thing that was said in this session was that you can think of your brain when you're forming a new habit. Week one, you can imagine that your brain's a baby. You know how a baby is like, ooh, so excited about everything. They're just like taking in everything and they're just full of joy for it. That's how your brain is the first week that you decide to start a habit. So if you decide today, I want to start this new habit of having a kinder dialogue in my mind, what's going to happen is week one, you're going to ooh and ah over the fact that this feels cool and fun and exciting and new. Week two, that habit has started to develop into what we would call a teenager. And we've either been a teenager or we've had teenagers. Teenagers are put up a fight for so many things. So what's happening in your mind in week two is now there's all of this resistance and now there's all of this fighting against that habit. Week two is the most important week to get through because by the time you're at week three, it is more of an adult. Your brain likes the responsibility of the habit. Your brain has gotten used to it. You've moved from some of the resistance. And this is just one of our guides, frameworks for habit building. We've got other guides who work with neuroscience. One of them is actually on this session. But that's a little bit of the framework that I want to give you for those of you who leave this conversation very excited to have that new inner dialogue or to see life in a new way. It's going to take some time, so have some patience with that. How does this relate to people with ADHD? It seems some things are amplified with the neurodivergent brain. I'm not diagnosed, but I'm sure that I'm ADHD. I am the type of person where I need everything right in front of me. If I put it away on a shelf, I'll forget that it exists. So if there's a habit that I'm trying to develop, I will create a habit tracker and put it like right on my bathroom mirror or somewhere that I can look at every day as a reminder, and then I check it off. I do really well with checking things off. I need it in front of me and I need to check it off. So maybe that'll be helpful for you, but I think every ADHD mind is also a little different too. So if you know what works for you, you can develop those systems based on that as well. So now that we dove into the whole entire neuroscience of habits, I hope that you all enjoyed that. Um, how do we go, Carolyn, from having zero information before today's session on changing our perspective to now realizing that we want to make that perspective shift? What's a simple way that we can start moving forward and developing this within ourselves?
Awareness. I think that it all starts with awareness. So start recognizing that you're a very complex being, and that we have the capacity, and I know this sounds very simplistic. We have the capacity to be very happy most of the time. I propose that most of us create barriers between us and happiness for a multitude of reasons. But I think that becoming aware that your emotions come in all the time, your thoughts come in all the time, it's starting to recognize them for what they are. You know, the voice in the back of your head saying, I shouldn't have done that. Why did I say that? Well, okay. What can that be other than just rumination? A lesson. What if we're starting to look at things that come into our lives as lessons instead of seeing things as um, obstacles or punishment or distractions? What if we can start to see things as, huh, never thought about that in that way before. What an interesting experience, this feeling in my heart. I haven't felt this before. What is this? Why, why do I feel like this? And starting to ask ourselves that question, why am I not okay? Why am I not okay with something someone said, something someone did, what's happened to me? Why can't I be okay with everything? It may not be the most delightful thing in the world, but it's there. It's reality. Why can't I just accept that and say, what a great lesson? Next time, I think maybe I can do something a little different. And around this too, Kira, I think it helps to talk with other people. And sometimes it just takes a little perspective shift. So back to me and my six friends. We all came into our little group with our own individual anxieties and challenges. And in recognizing that we were all in this together, there was that feeling of camaraderie and that feeling in that we are so much alike, you know, that we are all doing these same things and that we can support each other. We can support each other's learning and each other's experiences. And this is one of the reasons I love Life Guide so much. We have a whole cadre of people who have experienced things in their lives that have opened them up to realizations. And hearing those stories can help us open up, or sharing our stories can help somebody else open up. We're all in this together. And the best way to support each other is to open our hearts and our minds and accept. Accept. It is what it is. Accept it. And now we work with it.
Hearing you say it is what it is, my mom used to sing the song, I'm half Italian, Que sera, sera, which means whatever will be, will be. And I think, maybe that ends up being a support system for those of us who are starting to shift this perspective, is realizing that regardless of how life is unfolding, truly, we don't have much control over it. There are certain things that we can control, and I love that you ask yourself that question, Carolyn. Can I do something about it? If the laundry is stressing me out, can I do something about it? Absolutely. I had a season of my life where money was causing me significant stress and anxiety. Could I do something about it? Yeah, I got a guide to help me do something about it, and I ended up paying back $30,000 of debt and navigating my life in a different way because I realized, okay, there is control that I have, right? In certain ways, but also with money, I couldn't control how much debt I had at that point because I had already acquired it, right? So I couldn't stress about the fact that it was already there. I couldn't get anxious about what the future was going to hold because I had already created a situation, but I knew that there were some levels of control that I had. And for those of you who relate to being anxious as more of a trait, there is science that says that neurotic people think that they will be able to control the outcomes of the life around them, and that they think that their stress is helpful to them, and they think that their rumination is helpful to them. But what it does is it stops them from having that present moment awareness and having that realization of, oh, life is going to happen regardless. So neurotic people are scientifically more proven to be less happier, but not have better rewards at the end of it because life isn't ours to control. There are forces navigating all of this beyond outside of our nature. And Carolyn, you and I talked about some of the underlying causes of the stress that we experience, and I feel like that's going to be a really key part as we start to close out today's session. Can you tell us a little bit more of what you feel like that underlying cause is for a lot of our stress and anxiety that we experience?
Fighting against reality. Yeah, when there is something that we can do, we feel, that it's easier to do something than do nothing. You want to fix something. Sometimes you can't fix it. Sometimes we just need to accept it. I think one of the most important underlying truisms that I came to was we have a choice. We don't need to be controlled by the outside world. We have a choice to be happy. And, back to techniques, there are ways to distract ourselves. We have the techniques of meditation and all, which are wonderful. But how about just stepping back inside of ourselves and looking around and go, wow, look at this day. Look at the lizard on that rock. Look at the green in those trees. Appreciate the moment in front of us. We are so hardwired to make things the way we want them to be that we don't take time to appreciate the way things are. And even that even goes to the people in our lives. We find things that we don't like about people. They're so small most of the time, really. What if we looked at our friends, our families, our nemesises? What if we looked at them and saw the beauty in them and saw this wonderful struggle and saw just saw the beautiful essence of this person? It's an easier way to be in your life if you look at things from that point of abundance and realize that there is so much that you already have, that looking outside and saying that will make me happy, that probably won't make you happy. Your happiness comes from inside. So what we've been talking today about managing stress and anxiety. Stress and anxiety, we add on top of things. We don't need to do that. If we are able to look at life as it is and see the beauty and joy and accept the pitfalls and the challenges and appreciate them for what they are, an opportunity to learn, then everything takes on to me, it has a totally different patina. Things go from gray to bright and colorful. So, yeah, this is more of an invitation to think out of the box. Think about how can you approach life from a point of gratefulness and abundance and excitement, because this is our one precious life. And we have a choice. We can be happy, we can be angry, we can be sad, but we do have that choice. It's not put upon us. And that is one of the most exciting things, Kira, that I've come to learn. Losing my husband, we'd been married for many, many years. This was my best friend. We had had fabulous, experiences and lived a very full life. Wow, being without him was really awful. But in his death, I looked back and realized he is still teaching me something. Looking back and seeing how Doug lived his life and recognizing the just the way he was able to see beauty and joy and learning in every moment. Yeah, I was lucky. I was so lucky. Even in loss, he's still with me and he's still teaching me something. So if I live in that knowledge instead of the knowledge that I'll never be with him again, I'm always with him. And that changes my life from the inside.
And that's a choice, right? You didn't get to choose how long he had, but you do get to choose the way that you navigate this next part of your life. And, you and I talked a little bit about how fear is an underlying cause for a lot of things. And I think if we look back at all of the things that we've endured in life, we can realize that, hey, we're pretty resilient. I've made it through just about everything, all the tests that life has handed me, and I'm still here, and I got this. And we can either choose to be sad or mad or upset about the life that we live and the circumstances that we have, or we can choose to be grateful. And we can't always choose what's happening on the outside, but we can choose what's happening on the inside and the way that we perceive it. So today's conversation has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Carolyn, so much for your insight and for your stories and your anecdotes that provided so much to today's conversation. For those of you who have enjoyed this conversation, Carolyn is one of our guides that you can have a call with, which means that if you want to have a one-on-one call and start talking about maybe some of the things that we expressed today, or maybe different things, maybe this inspired different layers of realizing, oh, I might need help with this. Carolyn can support you. I dropped her profile in the link. You can schedule a call. You can read through a little bit more of her life experience, and she can help you grow and find more of that wholeness inside that, of course, we're looking for. And then, as I said in the beginning, today was part one of two. So, tomorrow is our deep dive mentorship. Tomorrow is where we all get to share our voices, share our faces, share our stories, and navigate it together. You'll have Carolyn and I leading the session and asking you questions, gathering more perspective and insight so we can give you more personalized guidance on how to start navigating through some of the challenges or struggles, or maybe just blind spots that we have in life that we're looking to move through. So I just dropped that link in the chat for you to register for that. We would love to see you. We'll be diving into this sphere of control. So we'll have an actual diagram that talks about the things that are in our control and are out of our control. You'll be able to print that off, use it at your leisure to navigate your life. And outside of that, that is the end of today's session. But thank you so much for having us, and thank you so much, Carolyn, for being here for today's conversation.
Thank you, Kira. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much, everyone.